Welcome back to Building for Others, the AI podcast where in order to get on, you have to have made a thing that is actually used by people. It can't just be hype. It can't just be vaporware. And today, Sachin and I are very excited to talk to John Head here, who is in Chicago, and he is a tech executive with decades of experience. But John, I'm sure you are much better at telling us about your story than we are. So how about,
There's one thing
how
I
are you saying
know,
hi?
but if
Yeah.
there's one thing I know, it's that he is not a fan of Illinois basketball.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty obvious where my allegiances are. So I bleed orange and blue. Chicago Bears, Illinois, and in Chicago we say baseball separates the teams, but the Bears unite us. So I'm a White Sox guy. Go Sox! But yes, nice to do this with both of you. My name's John Head, Chief Evangelist at Netrix Global. Based out of Chicago. We are a global technology consulting firm focused in the areas of managed services, security, cloud, data and AI, and a bunch of other areas. You say I've been doing this for multiple decades. Is that the gray hair or the resume? I'm not sure which. But
It's the resume.
I was at an organization for over 20 years that then Netrix acquired. We're PE backed, like a lot of us are these days, and grew from a small boutique app dev consultancy into this what is now a multi discipline. We're about 1,000 people, not just in the US, but folks in Argentina, Spain, Bulgaria, India, and the Philippines. So, right. And I'm probably like most people at this stage in my career, started out with a technology background. I go all the way back to the early days of Excel and, started on app macros before even scripting languages were fun. And at some point realized I was a better talker than a coder. And so I shifted into the relationship space. So
Which nowadays might make you a better coder again.
well,
Yeah.
and we can talk about that because the past 60 days teaching myself Claude Code and doing more in the last 60 days I probably have in the last decade with developing. And it's both empowering and extremely scary because I know the quality of that my code was back then. And it's not much better today, even though I'm not writing it. But I'm in the relationship business. That's what I do. Clients come to me and they ask us to help solve business problems, right? We happen to use technology to solve those business problems. And my specialty and background is in the app dev space, right? I make a joke that 30 years ago, we called it either workflow or business process automation. And then it became application modernization. And then we had digital transformation. And, the AI term is pretty broad. The analysts, they got to make their money by rebranding everything every so often, which is great. But what we're really doing is we're automating business process, right? And whether we're doing that on the computer or we're doing it in a server, but everything we're doing today is possible because of the journeys of cloud and big data, right? All of mobile, what we've done with mobile devices, none of what we have today, we'll call it AI, is possible without going through all of those processes that we've gone through in the last 20 years, right? What we have with consumer AI and where, in the Gen AI and where agentic AI is and is going, it builds on all of those pieces that people like us have been doing in the industry for the last 20 or 30 years. And what I kind of feel like is it's like a puzzle, right? All the puzzle pieces came together. And it's not just, what OpenAI did with ChatGPT and that launch changed everything, but the fact that everybody else could respond so quickly tells you that everybody was on the verge, just somebody had to be first. And once somebody was first, we had this explosion of tool sets.
Well, do you
So-
think
Yeah, I
there's a step change here, or is it more of the same? Because that would be a hot take.
I think the answer to your question is yes. So I think in terms of thought process, we have a massive change. I think is in terms of tooling, it is just the next step in the process, right? I think people are more willing to pull out their phone or their laptop and automate the things that they used to spend time on than they've ever been willing to do, right? The idea of having a true personal agent, right? A true electronic administrative assistant or whatever you want to call them, people have always wanted, and we're finally getting close, right? Do I think a CFO is willing to upload their general ledger into a consumer AI tool and allow you to do billing processing? Not at all. We're still talking about security and audit, right? Yeah, I know people who upload their MyChart health data into public open ChatGPT, and that scares the bejesus out of me as somebody who's worked in health services and hospital networks and HIPAA and all of those things, right? But I do
I think
think
we literally just did a prep session with somebody else who did exactly that
yesterday. Yeah.
And again, I don't have a problem with somebody else doing it. I'm not comfortable taking my personal medical data and uploading that yet.
Yeah.
I
think this is like, this gets to like a thing that's interesting about the kind of evolution of AI from a consumer and enterprise landscape, which is that really generative AI at least started in consumers' hands with the launch of ChatGPT. Of course, there were LLMs before that, but where it got really mainstream was with consumers, and they kind of front-loaded their expectations prior to like enterprise getting involved. Now, maybe there's an argument that enterprise now is like ahead of where consumers were, but that's not where it started. And I'm wondering like how that has changed the expectations and dynamics of how companies and enterprises operate, with the consumer expectation being maybe a bit more forward than the business one.
Yeah, what's interesting, right, is the idea of shadow IT isn't new, right? They're now calling it shadow AI, but it's still the idea that, I remember, back in the days of QuickPlace and other consumer SaaS tools, where the internal IT tools would be so bad that somebody would pull out their personal credit card and go buy Basecamp subscription for 10 people, right? But then what you realize is that Basecamp for 10 users became 100 users, and they invited clients, and they're uploading private, secure data, right? We have the same thing going on right now. You can preach to every person on the planet that you shouldn't put private data in consumer tools, and they're still going to do it because it's easy, right? And so where people come to us is not just go help us build something. They come to us because they have to manage the teeter-totter of productivity and advancing and security and risk, right? That teeter-totter, right? And when we go like this, wherever that is, every company's a different scale, right? Nobody's here, right? Some people are willing to take that risk. You've got new companies that could have been 100 people are now 5 because of AI, and they're running forward, right? A bank is the opposite way, right? I think what we're seeing in enterprise AI is that people expect a return of an investment immediately. It's not just the rate of change, it's now the rate of return. People are expecting to see a cost savings within weeks instead of months or quarters or years. And
in 2024, that wasn't the case. People were like, let's just see what happens. But that's definitely not where we are anymore.
Right. 24 was the year of what I call design. 25 is the year of pilots. 26 is the year of raw data and proof. People want to see it. I had a customer who came to us in the manufacturing space, and they're doing a bunch of bill of materials work, and that bill of materials work is almost 1 million line long. And what that means is somebody's ordering materials, and where they save their money is not if the order is right, it's how long that product is ordered before or after it's needed. So if they order it too soon, they've now paid for it, it's sitting on a shelf. If they order it too late, then they're waiting for that product. That variance, right? And if you have 1 million records, let's say a human gets 1,000 wrong. Percent-wise, that's low. Dollar-wise, that could be $1 million. Imagine if you could use these tools, agentic AI, generative AI, all of the cloud stuff, and go from 1,000 mistakes to 100 mistakes. That's the difference between $1 million and $100,000.
Yeah, well, so that's like something to dive in a little bit, because I think like on the enterprise side, when people first started to adopt this stuff, I feel like there was a lot of perceived risk with generative AI, in the sense of like, it's going to make mistakes, it's going to hallucinate, it's going to do these things, which of course does happen, which I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it does. But to your point, maybe it actually happens less than a human making a mistake. How do you kind of like, when you're working with customers, how do you think about the perceived risk versus the reality and the actual, what happens in day-to-day practice here?
And I think that's a good point, because it's not just about errors, it's also about the consumption and usability, right? We hear every day that people are talking about how AI is going to replace jobs, right? We see companies who are laying off people because they say AI has replaced jobs. There's a famous one who laid off 30,000 people, right? All of us who
what do
are
they call
in
it?
the
What's the term for
technology
that?
space,
AI washing, I think is the term.
what we all know is they didn't replace 30,000 people with AI. They A, overhired, and B, they needed cash to go buy capacity. Not right. Those people, and all of that work that people are doing is now shifted to others. Right. So when people come to us, the risk isn't, is it going to make a mistake? It's, what is our process to limit the impact of a mistake, whether that's a person or a computer? Right? So what are the checks and balances we're putting in there? What we're finding is the agentic AI, right? Where I really think the agentic AI on the enterprise side, the agentic AI, which is using generative AI underneath it, is allowing people to find mistakes and failure faster, and then putting that in the in front of a human, right? So nothing we do removes humans from the equation. It's allowing a person to do more because there's a bunch of automation, right? And that's true of 20 years ago when, Azure and AWS were still twinkles in people's eyes, right? We were still doing agents. We were doing them on slow servers. We were still automating process that needed humans. These tools are allowing us to do that stuff faster. And if you're, if you're a big health network, you're not going to lay off 50% of your doctors because there's some tool that can process prescriptions faster, right? Because you don't get more revenue. That your revenue stays the same when you lay off your costs may change. What you really want is those doctors, if the tools help, to see double the amount of patients, so you're generating more revenue. So I always look at it from the positive. How do we use these tools to make people more productive, more accurate, and grow, right? And I think that's where, and customers that come to us and that we want to work with also are looking at it as, how do we invest? How do we do more and make our people more productive with limiting it? And so you can't just go build an agent, right? I think the Claude Cowork example is perfect. You can't just go build something and then never test it. Right? We still have to test it. And then you have failovers. And then at the end of the day, I still pull it up and go, okay, what is exactly going on here? And I review everything. And when it's wrong, the really important part is when it's wrong is going back into the tool and saying, you got this wrong. Here's why. Fix it and learn. And that is, to me, that was my moment when I saw Claude Cowork learn because somebody found a mistake and told it. Right? I'd used ChatGPT, I'd used Claude, but when Cowork showed me that it could learn on stupid stuff, right? One of my demos is, I'm a music guy. I love to listen to music. I hate radio stations generated by these tools. So I created a Claude skill where I literally say, Spotify playlist generator, and I paste in a Setlist FM website, which is a listing of a concert and all the songs, right? And it goes out and it builds that set list, that playlist for me from that set list, right? So I can show you, Bruno Mars was here, I wanted, With
Wait, what do you
my
mean he was here? You were hanging
he was
out
in
with Bruno
Chicago.
Mars?
No, he was in Chicago a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Not my favorite artist. I figured I'd stay away from the scarier stuff that people wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
The
No, that's
European
fine.
power metal. But
Love it.
instead of spending 30 minutes manually having to find songs on albums, it generates this in 90 seconds and I don't have to do anything about it. Right. I also have this, uh, a Discord server that came from a website with a bunch of guys around a gaming community. We've known each other for 20 years. And every Friday we create a new music thread. And I would, through curated lists that I've built over years, go to Spotify and Apple and YouTube and create a list with links to all of the new songs that's in my preference I wanted to share, right? And on my calendar at 7 a.m. every Friday at 30 minutes, right? That's now a quad scheduled skill that takes 45, 60 seconds in the background, and I copy and paste and drop it in. So I took 30 minutes out of my weekly to-dos that are personal, and I completely automated it. And then somebody says, hey, that was pretty cool, but why didn't it pick this up? So now I go back and say, you didn't see the new song from Metallica this week? Why? And it goes, oh, I missed it because I didn't look here, right? So it's not just building a document, it's building a database, and it's teaching itself how to do that. So to me, right now apply that to business. Now do that to email, and do that to inventory, and do that to scheduling, right? If you're transportation and logistics and you've got trucks or trains and you're moving goods, do what I just did and apply that. That's where the enterprise AI growth, right? And that's why I think it's a hockey stick. I think
Well, I want to come back to that right now because I think in like some of the prep material it says that Netrix focuses mostly on PE-backed companies. Is that right?
No, mid-market.
Mid-market.
So mid-market is where we are. We are PE based, but we have a lot of customers, public, private, that type of stuff. What it is that people are coming to us saying, if we're going to spend, and I'm just going to use round numbers here, if I'm going to spend $100,000 on an AI investment, it's no longer 200% growth. People are looking for 5, 6, 10 times return on investment.
Well, I wanted to bring it up because like the conventional wisdom with like thinking about the PE story, and I know this is not the case, is like it's got to be cut, efficiency. But what you're saying is actually the opposite of that. So like, what is the reality of what's happening with companies that you guys work with where there might be an efficiency mandate, but it seems like actually there's more of a growth mandate than an efficiency mandate?
So I will tell you, a good consultant, which is what I am at the end of the day, right? A good consultant picks customers that they can have mutual relationship outcomes, right? I want to work with them. I want to give them the outcome they need. And that means I have good projects for my team and we pay them well, right? If someone's saying, I want to build this so that I can then, fire 10 people, nobody in that process is enjoying it. Nobody wants to be part of that. It's just the reality type stuff. Does it happen? Of course it happens. I think what I'm finding is the cost savings can lead to growth instead of just we can take 3 people out of the chain. And I think that's going to be the story going forward. I think if you're a big public company, it's a whole different story.
Got it. Let's move on to some of the stuff that you worked on. So you gave one example of what you did personally and how that translated over to some of the areas and focuses for your clients and what they're trying to achieve in their business. What are other things you've built?
Well, so I think the first place I'll start is for myself, right? A lot of what I do is research and prospecting, right? So I don't do a lot of what we call inside sales, cold calling, right? So I'm not sending 1,000 LinkedIn messages a week type stuff, right? I'm talking to people who are in my network, inside that I have relationships. But the ability to go out and literally type in a prompt that's I've been used, and in my work life, we're using Copilot. So I'm using Copilot, the research agent, and I've really trained it where I can say, I have a meeting with this person and at this company about this topic. Go out and find me everything you can. And it's not just saying, here's who this person is. It's saying, this is what the company's done. Here's all of their competitors and what we can find out. So that what used to take hours to do manual research, right? And Google searches are what they are. These research agents can go do hours of work in 90 seconds, right? And then produce.
We did this on you to prep for this call.
Right. And, I do it personally in my, when I'm meeting somebody through a networking group. Let's have lunch and meet coffee, right? There's a lot of those kind of introductions. I go out of my way. Yes, I know how to go to somebody's LinkedIn profile. I know how to go to do a Google search. But I can show you and I did I have two profiles. It's of course another co-work skill, and what it pulls back. And it's that level of work. And now take that into the work world. So I can then prep for every meeting. As I talked about, I'm super excited about the Copilot co-work, which will allow me to run agents that will then do this automatically for me, right? So every morning at 6 a.m., go through my calendar, find everybody I'm meeting who's not an employee, and build out all of this information for me, right? And we're going to get there this year.
You have a better version in your personal life than you do in your work life. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and only because just like every company, we're cautious with our data, both our company data, and we have a lot of customer data, right? So, at today when we talk, Copilot co-work is still in frontier mode. So a lot of people aren't rolling that out inside corporate environments yet. It'll be there. So I have this, what I do though is on an individual level is that. So if you want, I can show you what I've built here. So let's share the screen. So I won't show the meat of it, but as you can see here, so this is the profile document that it built for you.
Nice.
Right. Right. And it's not only is it pulling from your LinkedIn, it's also pulling from everything it found on the web, right? I have it go out your education, find all of the boards and advisory roles, any organizations, philanthropy and community, awards, and for me, mutual connections, right? So this is everybody who we share a mutual connection with. And then it goes out and it sees, it can find any personal info, and then it's what's your activity been, right? So I ran this a couple weeks ago, but you can see here's the things that you did in the past couple weeks. And then some trigger points, some things that may be good comments. And then of course, like any good person doing AI, I have it list all of the sources so that I can go back and double check. Right.
Yeah.
So to me, before I go into every meeting, this gets auto-generated every day, and then I just basically click a button and and then I read this, and that's my process, right? So that's how every meeting I go into, it generates one of those and comes through. So
obviously there's value just by looking at the thing that I can back up. A lot of that stuff is very accurate. I also like that it didn't find personal details about my family. That was nice.
Correct.
But I'm curious, how has this played out in practice now? What have been the results of you having access to this information with people you're talking?
For me, the top level stuff is mostly just background, right? To me, the big stuff is what is somebody involved with non-work wise. So I'm looking for boards, philanthropy, and people we have in common, right? I'm looking for one or two items. You have coffee with somebody, 45 minutes. You're looking for one or two things to take that conversation and go to the next level, right? I'm a true believer that networking is not, you never ask, you always give. And that part of that give is finding things that you have in common, right? So am I always looking to see if somebody is, are they at a school that has good college sports? Is it a rival? Did something happen? Right? If somebody popped up and they mentioned that something about, UCLA, and I can, as UCLA lost yesterday in the men's baseball tournament, right? So I'm always looking for nuggets to make that conversation go easier. I'm also looking for commonality, right? So for me, instead of having to put focus time on my calendar every morning for an hour to go through all of this, I can do all of this in about 10-15 minutes, right? So,
Amazing.
and now take that and put it in the corporate environment where it would have access to, our CRM and our company data, where I could build a report that basically says, I'm going into this client, tell me all the projects and all their status, tell me all of the AR information, tell me all of the notes that not I just took, but anybody in my company, right? We're 1,000 people. People are talking. I don't always have conversations. Go do that report on a larger amount of data to make that meeting even better, right? It is literally the dream of every salesperson to walk in with on their phone a true profile and history update. And I think we're there. You just have to build.
We have built that dream, John, and I would love to show you one day.
Well, so yeah, I think that's like the important thing here too, is that the thing that we recognize in this space is that there are a lot of individuals that have done amazing things, whether that's like what you've done for yourself and then translating it over to your work experience. But we're also in this weird mode with AI right now where it is really individualized, and there aren't like a lot of ways to take what one person has done and transfer that over so it has compounding value across the entire team. It's the thing that we really focus on with our platform and product, but I think it's like something that we're going to see probably in the next year happen with a lot of different companies, is taking those best things and highlighting them and making them like compound across the organization.
Yeah, as probably you, I have multiple computers. I actually live in a mix of Mac and Windows, and the fact that inside Claude, the chats go across computers, but nothing in Cowork works, right? So I have a skill that runs, but I always want access to it, but it's running on my my MacBook Air, and my really powerful gaming computer that does nothing during the day that could be running agents doesn't have access to all of that. So, right, there's no good way to share skills. And more importantly, I was reading today that people are injecting crap into skills. So somebody they see a YouTube influencer, they watch a video, they click a button have this for free. What's actually in that? And is somebody smart enough to know what's in the prompt is actually something that they should install in the machine? So that's when my
Yeah,
employers,
I think it was like yesterday or the day before. OpenAI had to disable their Excel plugin because
Yeah.
there was a prompt that could exfiltrate all of the data inside of Excel.
So when my company says they're taking a slow walk to giving us access to that functionality and on customer info, I'm okay with that. I get it. Do I think we need do I think that type of stuff has to work across machines? Yes. Do we need a good skill catalog? Like, we need a skill store, just like we have the App Store. And we also need some process where those skills and plugins get verified by some third-party process, right?
Yeah.
And each individual company should have their own, right? So Claude and OpenAI and they should all have a skill plugin store, and they should be verifying all of that. And it's a ton of work. We all know how much Apple puts into that in the App Store, but the success of the iPhone is because of the apps, not because I can touch the screen, right? And I think it'll be the same with these tools. So, if you got time, I want to show you one more thing that I do. I think it's actually pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
I've really taken on this idea of enterprise AI, and I'm trying to, expand my thought leadership on that. And what I found is Google searching has just gotten so bad looking for specific data because of all the injections. So what I did is I created my own tool to go find content on a daily basis. So Okay, I'm just going to do this. It'll be easier. Are you not? So this is my intelligence brief that runs every morning. And so what this is just basically doing is finding stories on enterprise AI in case studies, market trends and research, and governance and security. And it's giving me a summary and a direct link. I'm not taking these summaries and pasting those into LinkedIn. But what this is then doing, and I now then have another skill that says, take all of this and find me the top 3 that I think my audience would like most. So I'm still writing. I'm still writing every day.
Yeah.
I believe content creation should be by humans. Of course, I'm using tools to help with that. Help me, which hashtag should I use? What's the right source? But the discovery, I've completely automated. And I think that's super important. And as you can see, this is clean. I get one of these every weekday morning. It never repeats anything. And again, this has saved me a significant amount.
We have a lot of customers in media, and reporters are finding the same thing where it's like you do need a human in the loop to say this is what this means, but their ability to surface and discover more information for processing is like absolutely 1,000.
And to me, data discovery can be automated as long as there's a way to fact check it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good example in another podcast episode with the Boston Globe where it was an intern that was building something. They used LDAX to do it, and they built an agent that would go out and scrape school board transcripts, which, they're historically over the last decade, the amount of local reporting has been decimated. But AI is actually like giving you the power to go and get all of that information and report on things that you normally wouldn't be able to. And so like that type of stuff is really interesting, I think, like just your ability to extend into areas that you traditionally wouldn't because you have way more throughput to do so.
And what I've then, the last step is, and unfortunately, the MCP server I'm using in Zapier is broken, but I created a dashboard in Claude, right, using the new tools. I forgot what they call it, but it's a dashboard that tracks everything I post in LinkedIn and shows number of hits and relevancy. So I can literally go in and say, for the last week or the last month, here are the stories that are getting the most clicks, the most reshares, the views, and it's real time. I'm doing it as a dashboard. So I just click on it and I look. To me, that's what we've been doing on enterprise dashboards, right? That goes, Power BI and now everything else that's there. The ability to do a dashboard on your own life is super powerful, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm geeking out on that kind of stuff, but I think.
Well, that's where you got to upload all your health records, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh my God. I saw this one story about someone who works, I think at Anthropic, it might have been OpenAI, and they uploaded every single text message that they had sent to their wife and then done like analytics on it. And it was like, oh, I don't like, cool. All right. I hope that she likes it. But I don't want that info going to Anthropic.
I mean, I built a report of every song I've ever listened to in Spotify. They can have that info.
That's pretty low risk.
Yeah, that's a little bit low risk.
But yeah, I actually think where we are with enterprise AI is, I don't think we're at the inflection point, but I think by the end of the year, we're going to see enterprise AI driving these companies forward as much as the consumer AI. Because we all know what's going on with pricing and tokens and all of that kind of stuff. The ability for the enterprise to write the big check when the consumers are, some people are paying $200 a month for Claude right now. No one's paying $2,000 a month for Claude, right? Companies, I think we're going to see them invest in big amounts. And that's why I think this enterprise space is where the innovation comes over the next 6 to 18 months.
Well, just one last thing here, and I know we're kind of running up against time. the interesting thing that we're seeing, and maybe we can carry this onto a conversation outside of the podcast, is that there are a lot more companies that are thinking outside of the foundational models because of the token spend, and they're looking more at open weight, open source models as a way to get production without like blowing up costs. So like curious if you're seeing or hearing about that too.
Well, I think everybody's interested, right? I think that the perfect example is what, OpenClaw, right, went massive in December and January. And as soon as co-work, and now we've got and Codex came out pretty quickly after co-work, right? OpenAI responded really quick. The OpenClaw community has shrunk because it's open source and it requires a lot more time and maintenance. You really have to be a developer and the risk is higher. I think we're going to see the same thing with the foundational models versus independent models. I've been involved with a hybrid cloud for a long time, which is the combination array of local cloud and public cloud. I think the idea of hybrid AI is coming, where you'll have a local models running on a virtual server or iron that you own that does a bunch of stuff, and it takes that, it sanitizes it, and then it takes that and puts it up in a public model or an enterprise version of that. Do I think we're going to have local models running on our phone that the average person is using? I think we're a long ways from that. Companies, local models, private cloud, up into the public enterprise versions. I think there's already people talking about it. I think we're going to see that be commonplace by the end of the year.
Cool. Well, John, this was awesome. We covered the landscape. I love that you took like what you did personally and are applying it directly into the business and using that as a way to like make sure that the business is staying on top of that. And I'm sure you're doing that for your clients as well. Just in the last thing here, one thing we like to do is just have the guests tell the audience like any traps to avoid or any like advice they want to give as they're exploring this landscape.
I think the number one thing is you just have to be willing to try and learn, right? I think the amount of info that you can learn is on this, whether you're watching an influencer or you're reading an article, but what you really need to do is just take out one of the tools and start working with it. Pick something you do on a personal level that you do every week that you can automate and just see how it works and iterate. You have to be, it's going to fail the first time, right? Iterate, play with it, learn it. And then, one of the things I think we're not there yet, but these tools are going to then tell us preemptively, hey, you just did this 4 times in chat. We should build a skill, right? And so we're going to see that model shift from talking to doing. And you just got to be willing to try. I mean, I make the joke that if I can go back and learn to write code again, anybody can do it, because it's been 10 years. And when I got out of that business, my code was really bad. But it's worth, I think it's worth it. I think this is the future. And my last sentence I'll say is, I don't think AI replaces people. I think what happens is people who are embracing AI replace people who won't embrace AI. Those of us who are using it and integrate it into our life are the ones that are going to move forward and have the advantage. So I'm not into the, AI is going to destroy the world, but I do think the people who aren't going to use AI are they're going to be behind.
That's a great note to end on. John, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I know it's going to be super valuable for the watchers and listeners.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John.